One of the key things that happens when a business is successful is that it obviously starts to grow. And this is where a lot of small business owners begin the process and the journey of moving from one mindset or one way of doing things into another way of doing things. And if they don't do that, that's when they run into problems. So how do you know if you're in the right space as a business owner to either take on that new growth challenge or moving into a scaling situation where you can begin to leverage the business and develop it either into new markets, develop new product lines, expand your customer base somehow, perhaps through exports or online business or whatever it happens to be, depending on the nature of the business and your product. And aside from the fact that there are some very basic things you need to do in order to prepare for this kind of situation, for example, you have to consider the capitalization needs of your business in order to grow. So do you have enough money to actually invest in growing the business or in scaling the operations of the business? There can be a number of things that you have already started to explore, and this is all good. This is part of any growth process for any business. Where we start to see the problems with business growth and scaling is not necessarily with the marketplace or with the capitalization of a business. This may have to do more with your own mindset, your own ability to grow and scale with the business itself. This is something that's often overlooked by the business owner. They just assume that as the business grows, everything will be the same as far as they're concerned. They'll continue to operate and function the way that they normally would. They fall into a trap of doing business as usual within a growth or a scaling environment. And that's where the mistake is made. That is where the problems begin for most entrepreneurs in that 5 to 10 year window where a successful business begins its actual growth from that entrepreneurial stage into a mid-size organization that is maturing within the marketplace and maturing as an organization, as an entity. So what do we do with that? There are some key questions that I recommend you ask in terms of understanding your own mindset and your own attitudes and your own behaviors within the business so that you can be prepared to not only confront these but also change them. Changing them is important because the business is changing. And as the business change, you as the owner, as the entrepreneur who started the business, need to evolve with the business as well. It's what I would compare to the stereotypical phrase that's often used is a solopreneur. So I would say moving from that solopreneur situation or mindset where you've always done everything yourself, you know exactly what needs to be done in all aspects of the business, moving away from that and moving into what I call a CEO mindset. In other words, understanding that you are running a business that in effect is beginning to run itself and you need to step out of the way in some situations. Or you need to step into it more in terms of planning it, in terms of guiding it, in terms of being the continuing visionary for the business, but allowing the business functionally to operate on its own. And the only way you can do that is by building in the processes, collecting the people that you need to collect, and adapting the systems within the business so that it actually takes on that entity, that form itself. and you begin to move into a different role that is much more of a guidance and a visionary role. There are some key questions that I always ask business owners to evaluate for themselves beyond, whether they've got the financial system set up, whether they've got the strategic plan set in place, whether they've got the business plan that they need in order to scale or grow. Beyond all that, those are what I would call technical issues that definitely need to be solved. But I'm focusing more on the owner, the entrepreneur, and how they think and how they function as the key person within the business. So this step is critical in that scaling growth process for a business and for the entrepreneur who's behind the business. This is more than just a technical evaluation of the business and its capability to scale or grow. This is about the owner. It's all about them. It's all about you as an owner. One of the first things that comes up for owners is, well, I know what I'm doing. I've done this for 10 years or whatever it happens to be. Fair enough. You sure do. And kudos to you for getting it this far. I would pose the statement, though, that if you think you know it all or you've done it all, that's where you're probably wrong. This transition is really about you being open to recognizing that you may need to think and act differently going forward into the next phase of your business. This is about you being able to, as the owner, adopt new ways of acting and new ways of behaving. This is not about you treating things as business as usual. In fact, it's far from that. A scaling or a growth situation for a successful business is critical in order for the business to actually not only get to the next level, but to survive. This is really about taking what you've developed in your mind, what you know about the business in your head, and being able to translate that and transfer it into the business itself. And what do I mean by that? I mean being able to set up situations, people, systems, infrastructure that take over the thought process for you in terms of the day-to-day functioning of the business. This is critical for you to take on your role, to really embrace your role as the CEO of the business. It's really about getting out of your own way. That's what I want to say the most. So here's a quick owner self-assessment that I encourage all business owners to do who are in a situation where they are either scaling or growing their business or about to, or thinking that they need to, or they find themselves in that situation and it's just happening. This is an owner assessment. This is not a business assessment. For this stage, there are 6 key questions that every business owner should be asking themselves. Number 1, in terms of the business overall, how am I as the owner feeling these days? Do I feel comfortable with the growth that's going to occur or that is occurring? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel frustrated? What are the key drivers behind what I'm feeling? Number 2, when things become challenging, what are my common go-to responses or reactions to these challenges? And how is that affecting the business? Or how is that impacting how I perform in the business? Try to think of specific examples as you're answering these questions. And feel free to write it down as well. It's important that this is authentic to you and that this is accurate to your experience. Number 3, what is your go-to method for solving these challenges and for solving general problems in the business as a whole? What do you do? Are you a fixer? Are you in there like dirt, sort of cleaning things up and making sure everything runs yourself? Do you delegate this? Do you involve a team? How is it that you actually solve problems within your business? And again, try to give examples of this. Question 4, how do you usually spend your time in the business? Are you involved in some of the daily tasks? Are you out in the back packing boxes for the shipments? Are you buried in the accounts payable, receivable process? Where is your go-to task within the business or tasks? Wouldn't it make sense to know where you're spending your time in the business so that you know if your time is spent in a worthwhile manner? And we'll get back to that in a later video, but for now, where do you spend your time? Number 5, do you have a retirement or succession plan for the business itself? So it's one thing to grow and to scale operations and begin the process of expanding your business, but do you have a plan for yourself and how that will evolve as the business evolves? Do you intend on staying with the business until you die? Or until you can't actually work anymore? And then what happens when you do get to the point where you can't or you don't want to work anymore? What happens then? Is there somebody to take over? Is there a succession plan in place? Maybe it's a family business. Do you have everything set up that you need in order to make sure that the business continues to function and grow or continues in perpetuity after you're done with it? And for many business owners, that may simply not be the case at all. You may just decide that you're going to shut the business down once you're done. That's okay too. The important thing is that you have your exit plan planned out. And by the way, exit plans can include selling the business. And what will that entail? Who will you sell it to? Do you have a market for that kind of business to be sold? Those kind of questions need to be answered. And finally, number 6, what do you consider to be your roles and responsibilities within the business? And this gets back to question number 4, which is, where do you see yourself, or where do you find yourself spending time in the business? Do you have a job description for yourself? Do you know what your roles are in the business? Are those roles effective? In other words, are you doing work in the business that you're A, good at, B, that you enjoy doing, and C, that you have time and energy to do? If you find yourself being kept awake at night because your payroll is due the next day and you're the one that actually does it, wouldn't the appropriate question for yourself be, is that something I really should be doing? Just a question. Once you're able to answer these questions honestly and openly to yourself, then you begin the process of really assessing what you are to the business as the owner. Wouldn't you rather be working on the business as opposed to in the business? And I would argue that it's the former that you should be doing, not the latter. In other words, you should be working on your business. You should be doing some of the big picture stuff, doing the strategic planning, looking at those new markets that you're going to want to scale into, looking at all the things that you need to do in order to guide the business in its life path through the marketplace. And if you find yourself working in the business, then the questions that I've already posed to you come into play. Are you working effectively in the business? Are you working on stuff that is getting results for the business overall? Are you doing what you really should be doing in the business? Hey folks, a quick reminder, if you found the content of this video helpful, then hit the like and subscribe buttons below. As well, I have a link from my website in the description where you can sign up for a free 1-hour coaching session with me. I guarantee you that out of that coaching session, you'll get at least 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 different actions that you can take and implement right away to help your business scale and grow the way you want it to. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you soon.